The house felt too quiet for how cheerful she was humming. I was standing in the hallway, pretending to scroll my phone, while Mira zipped and unzipped her carry-on for the fourth time. It made that soft whirring sound, the one that always makes me think of those little wind-up toys that eventually crash into a wall and fall over. "I can't believe I finally found time for myself," she said, not to me. To the room. To the universe. Maybe to herself. Her voice bounced off the walls like she was giving a TED Talk called Escaping Expectations, my journey into ignoring my husband entirely. I didn't answer. She held up a dress. Seafoam green. Thin straps. The kind she used to wear when she still cared what I thought. I'd compliment her, and she'd pretend not to hear it, then smile when she walked away. Now she just wore things like that for airports and strangers. And him. The moment she left the room to grab her power bank, I slid the drawer open and pulled out the paper. It was folded into a tight square, pressed flat under a book in my office for 2 days. Her words. Every one of them. She never meant me to see it. It was never sent. Never shredded either. Just sitting there in the drafts folder like a forgotten bullet. The letter said she was sorry. That she hated how complicated things had become. That lying to Cal is easier than looking in the mirror, and that's not your fault. Not mine. The guy's name never appeared. Just you. Which somehow made it worse. Like he was her main character now, and I'd been cut from the cast. But here's the twist. I didn't write back. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Didn't even breathe differently. I printed the letter, folded it into thirds, and waited. And now, as she packs her bathing suits and vegan snacks, and that stupid silk sleep mask she can't nap without, I'm watching her walk into the bedroom again, drop her phone on the nightstand, and sigh with the kind of relief you only get when you've lied well enough to believe it. I get up. Quietly. Deliberately. I walk to her bag, and I slip the letter in. She'll find it in a hotel bathroom, probably. Or while she's searching for toothpaste next to some man's cologne. She'll unfold it and pause. Because the words will be familiar. Too familiar. They're hers. Every single one. But now she has to read them with me watching, even if I'm not there. I sit back down in the hallway and wait for her to thank me for helping her pack. She never does. But I don't mind. Because the real unpacking hasn't even started yet. Mira texted me from the airport. Made it through security. No line at all. Smiley face. That smiley face at the end. That was her favorite shield. Whenever she didn't want me to ask questions, she'd add one. A synthetic emotion meant to block real ones. I stared at the message longer than I should have. I even typed out enjoy twice and erased it both times. Eventually, I just locked my phone and stared at the coffee table. It was covered in old receipts, a dying succulent, and a list she'd made the night before. Passport white heavy check mark. Sunglasses white heavy check mark. Charger white heavy check mark. Guilt cross mark. Okay, maybe not that last one. But it should have been there. She'd been planning this trip for weeks. At least, that's what I thought. What I didn't realize, until the night before she left, was how little I'd actually been included in any of it. Not just the packing. Everything. From the start. I didn't know her flight number. I didn't know the name of the retreat center. I didn't know the names of the girlfriends she claimed were going with her. She'd told me it was a healing trip. Just a reset, she said. Everyone's doing it now. Phones off. Nature on. Energy clean. The more she spoke in hashtags, the more I felt like I was being marketed to. I decided not to say anything. I figured if I played it cool, she might panic. Maybe even come clean. But she didn't flinch. She kissed me on the cheek that morning like she was signing off a work email. Left the garage door open, like she always does when she's rushing. And drove off with a suitcase full of sandals, serums, and the apology she didn't know she'd written. And now she was in the air. Or on the ground. Or already in someone's hotel bed. I had no way to know. So I walked into her office. I don't go in there often. That's her space. She hung up lights, bought a fancy salt lamp, even got one of those stupid neon signs that says, good vibes only, in cursive. But the room didn't smell like good vibes. It smelled like unfamiliar cologne. Not mine. Not anyone we know. I pulled open the top drawer of her desk, where she kept her notebooks. Mira writes like she's in love with paper. Every page filled with her tiny, neat handwriting. I flipped through one journal and stopped halfway through. There were no names. But there were metaphors. And when a woman starts comparing another man's voice to thunder and calling your marriage a dusty museum of old promises, you don't need names. There was one paragraph I kept coming back to. It's not about leaving Cal. It's about finding the part of me I left behind with him. Somewhere between his careful silence and my over-apologizing, I forgot how to want anything. Careful silence. I wanted to scream. But what good would that do now? Instead, I kept reading. And at the very back of the notebook, there was a list. Just one word per line. Lyle. Ava. Blue Door Room. Room 214. June 11th to 14th. I checked the date. It was June 11th. And suddenly, I knew. There was no retreat. No healing. No girls' trip. Mira had gone to meet someone. Not for closure. Not for confusion. For confirmation. To see if she could start a new chapter before the last one ended. And the worst part? I still wasn't ready to leave her. I wasn't ready for anything. Except to watch. And I had a plan. By midnight, I had poured a glass of whiskey I didn't want and opened my laptop with fingers that felt detached from my body. I don't drink much. It makes my heart race and my head feel like it's floating 6 inches behind me. But that night, I wanted to feel something. Even if it was artificial courage. I stared at my inbox for a long time. Nothing new. Nothing unexpected. No message from Mira. No confession. No guilt-drenched text about needing to talk or needing space or even a poorly timed emoji. Just a void. And in that void, something snapped quietly, like a hairline fracture spreading through glass. I opened her email account. I knew her password. She never changed it. Still our wedding date, backwards. She used to think that was romantic. Now it just felt like an insult to every vow she whispered while sliding a ring on my finger. The inbox was clean. Suspiciously clean. Too few messages for someone who ordered 90% of our household items online. So I checked the archived folder. That's where the real her lived. There were dozens of messages with a burner Gmail. No profile pic. Just a name, Lyle Traveler. Some of them were bland logistics, hotel bookings, flight confirmations, schedule coordination. But the ones that mattered, those were harder to read. I can't wait to breathe in a room without walls made of guilt. We only get one life. I'm tired of living mine in whispers. I didn't lie to him because I hate him. I lied because I didn't want to watch him break. She even sent him a Spotify playlist. I clicked on it. The first song was titled, Run Until Your Name Changes. I shut the tab. I'd seen enough. She was staying at a boutique coastal hotel 2 hours outside the city. I looked it up. Whitewashed walls, rooftop fire pits, no kids allowed. Romantic as hell. And somehow, familiar. Mira had sent me a Pinterest board last year when we talked about doing a road trip to reset our marriage. The same hotel was on it. I remember her saying, "This place feels like possibility." Guess she kept that possibility for herself. I should have just gone to sleep. Walked away, packed a bag of my own, and left a note on the fridge. But instead, I opened the camera feed. You see, we have a security system. She knows that. But what she forgot, or maybe just assumed I'd never notice, was that I upgraded the storage plan 2 months ago after someone broke into our neighbor's garage. That upgrade included micro-footage logging, which captured every time someone unlocked our door with a code. I scrolled through the data. Nothing out of the ordinary, until Thursday, 2 days before she left. 7:48 p.m. Front door unlock. Not Mira. 7:49 p.m. Guest room door opens. 8:17 p.m. No motion. 9:02 p.m. Front door closes. Lock engages. Short visit. Clean. Silent. I checked the interior cam in the hallway. He never entered the main area. Straight to the guest room. Straight out. I zoomed in on the frame. It wasn't clear, but he was tall. Broad. Tan jacket. Beanie. Beard. Not the kind of man Mira usually surrounded herself with. And not someone I recognized. That room still smelled like her shampoo and the last candle she forgot to blow out. She didn't think I'd check. She didn't think I was watching. But I was. And I had one more thing to do. Something petty. Something quiet. I went to her side of the bed, pulled open the bottom drawer, and found the leather journal she writes in when she thinks I'm asleep. Then I wrote a note. On the back page. It said, "You lied better than I ever believed. But don't worry. I'm not mad. Just busy rewriting the ending." Then I put the journal back, sat down on the edge of the bed, and finally finished the whiskey. The letter was already in her bag. The journal was now marked. The only thing left was me, and I hadn't yet decided what I was going to do with him, or with her, but I wouldn't stay still much longer. By morning, I'd memorized Lyle's face from the grainy hallway footage. Not the sharpest image, but enough. Wide jaw, lazy posture, expensive sneakers, the kind Mira used to roll her eyes at in public. I found myself wondering if she made fun of me to him. If they had inside jokes about my routines, my taste in movies, the way I still double knot my shoelaces. That morning, I didn't check my email. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. Instead, I logged into Myra's old tablet, the one she hadn't touched since she started using her phone for everything. She never reset it. Still logged into her cloud backup. Photos, notes, voice memos. I went to the Notes app first. The titles were like soft knives. Things I want but don't say. Conversations that never happened. A life I could have had. I opened the last one and read. If I had met Lyle first, none of this would be complicated. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe I like the chaos. Or maybe Cal was always the safe choice, and I don't want to be safe anymore. That word, safe. So many women want to feel safe. Until they get it. Then it becomes a cage. A pillow over the face. A man who brings them tea when they have cramps, instead of fireworks and arguments and hotel rooms with a view. She had written me into a corner without ever saying a word. I stared at her words, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel hurt. I felt curious. How far would she take this? So I gave her a little push. I opened a blank email and typed Lyle's burner address in the to line. I copied and pasted Myra's original letter, the one she accidentally left behind, the one I'd put in her suitcase. Every word. No edits. Then I added a single line at the end. Just so you know, you're not the only one she's lying to. And I sent it. No return address. No name. Just a digital ghost tossing a grenade into their fantasy. Immediately after, I changed the password to her tablet. Logged out of everything. Put it back in the drawer exactly where I found it. I didn't want to break anything. Just tilt the game board. Then I left the house. I drove nowhere in particular. Gas station, then a bookstore, then a park I hadn't visited in years. I sat on a bench with peeling green paint and watched couples walk by, laughing over smoothies and dog leashes and podcast recommendations. And I wondered, did any of them know yet? That someday, one would pretend not to notice how often the other smiled at their phone. That late meetings would replace "Can we talk?" That forgiveness would become performance art. By the time I got home, there was still no message from Mira. But there was a missed call from an unknown number. And a voicemail. I pressed play. A man's voice. Shaky. Not angry. Not yet. Just rattled. I don't know who this is, but if this is some kind of joke, it's not funny. She told me she ended it. That's what she said. If you're trying to stir things up. The message cut off. I sat very still. I hadn't said a word. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't declared myself the Avenger. But I was no longer invisible. I was in the story now, just not in the role they thought I'd play. Later that night, I checked the hotel's website again. They had an online guest services portal. I clicked the forgot password button. Mira had used her personal email to book. I knew that because I paid the credit card bill she forgot to hide. I reset the password. Logged in. Room 214. Checked in under Mira Fallon. No guest listed. But the second I looked at the itemized charges, I knew Lyle was there. 2 entrees. Bottle of wine. Couples massage. She didn't even try to cover her tracks. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering if this was the part where I drive there. Where I do something dramatic. Catch them in the act. Confront her. Get closure. But nothing inside me wanted that. I didn't want the fight. I didn't want the scene. I wanted the silence that comes after the lie is heard by both ends. So I didn't drive there. I did something much smaller. Something meaner. I canceled her return flight. Used her login. Requested a refund. Then I booked her a new one. For 2 days later, at 5:15 a.m. from a different airport. She wouldn't find out until she tried to check in. She'd panic. She'd call. And I wouldn't answer. Sometimes, the only power you have left is giving someone what they thought they wanted. And watching them choke on it. I was outside trimming the hedges when she called. I'd been using the old rusted shears, the ones Mira always told me to throw out because they looked like a tetanus ad. I didn't care. I liked how they made me feel like I was working on something that had teeth. My phone buzzed 3 times before I even looked. Mira. I waited until it stopped ringing. Then walked back into the house. Sat down at the kitchen table. Let the silence settle. 30 seconds later, a new text appeared. Something's wrong. My flight says canceled. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later. Did you do this? Then. Cal. Be serious. I'm not playing games. The irony almost made me laugh. She wasn't playing games. She'd spent weeks moving pieces behind my back like a chess player with a god complex. And now that the board had shifted beneath her, she was confused. I made a sandwich. Turkey, plain bread, no condiments. She always called it the saddest lunch in America. I ate the whole thing in silence. By the time I finished, she'd sent 3 more texts, then finally gave up and left a voicemail. I didn't listen to it. Instead, I opened the hotel app again and watched the charges continue to rack up. 2 breakfasts. In-room movie. Wine. Always wine. For a woman who claimed she was trying to find herself, she sure seemed busy consuming everything in sight. That afternoon, I got a message from my brother, Owen. Hey, Mira just texted asking if you're okay. Everything good? Classic. She wasn't trying to reach me anymore. She was circling the wagons, making sure she still looked like the caring wife while privately unraveling behind the scenes. I told Owen I was fine. Just off the grid for a bit. Needed space. He replied, good for you. You're allowed to disappear sometimes. He had no idea how close to the truth that was. That night, I did something strange. I set the dining room table. Candles. Plates. Her favorite cloth napkins. The ones with tiny embroidered leaves she found on Etsy and forgot about a week later. I cooked pasta. Real pasta. With sauce. Not from a jar. I even opened the wine she'd been saving since her birthday last year. I poured 2 glasses. Sat across from an empty chair. Ate slowly. Quietly. She used to love dinners like that. Thought they were romantic in an old movie kind of way. Now, it was a one-man play. And I was both characters. Midway through the meal, her name lit up my phone again. I didn't even flinch. I wondered if she'd found the letter in her bag yet. The one I had slipped between her moisturizer and the charger cable she always forgets. The letter written in her voice. Her guilt. Her words. The goodbye she never had the guts to say out loud. If she'd found it, she hadn't mentioned it. And that told me she was either pretending not to understand, or she understood perfectly and was waiting to see if I'd admit it. Either way, I had no intention of blinking first. I left the table as it was. 2 wine glasses, 1 untouched. Just enough leftover food to make it look like someone stepped away, not abandoned, just delayed. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. Lol again. I'm not trying to get in the middle of anything, but this is messed up. She's freaking out. Said her flight got moved without warning. Are you doing this? I stared at it for a long time. Lyle, with his expensive shoes and recycled wisdom quotes, and someone else's wife. I could have ruined his life with a screenshot. I could have sent him photos, proof, dates, even the draft emails she wrote and never sent. But instead, I replied with just 2 words. Not yet. No punctuation. No name. Just that. He didn't respond. But 5 minutes later, Mira did. What do you want from me? And for the first time in 2 weeks, I replied. I wrote, I want you to sit in the lie. I want you to feel what it's like to be left without warning. To watch time pass in a room you chose for the wrong reasons. I want you to realize I've been awake this whole time. Watching, listening, preparing. And I want you to wonder if I'll be there when you get home. She didn't answer. Not right away, but I knew she read it. You can always tell. It's not the scene notification. It's the sudden pause and silence. And in that pause, I imagined her staring at her phone, finally understanding. She wasn't the one who left first. She was the one being let go. The garage door opened at 3:22 a.m. I was awake. I hadn't slept. Not since the moment I sent that final message 2 nights ago. The one where I told her I wanted her to sit in the lie. It had taken her 19 hours to reply, but she finally had. I'm coming home early. No apology. No panic. Just a statement. So I made sure her arrival would match it. I didn't empty her side of the closet. I didn't break anything. I didn't change the locks. What I did was worse. I made the house look exactly the same. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. Just off. I replaced her favorite shampoo with a cheaper brand that smelled faintly of antiseptic. Rearranged the silverware drawer so her muscle memory would betray her every time she reached for a spoon. Turned all the labels in the pantry to face the wall. Removed her pillow from the bed. Unplugged the charger from her side of the nightstand. Set every clock in the house back by 6 minutes. It wasn't revenge. It was subtle erasure. The sound of the garage door humming shut echoed like a pulse through the walls. I didn't move. I stayed in the living room chair. The one she always said was too stiff to be comforting. I liked that about it. Tonight especially. The front door creaked open. She didn't say anything. Her suitcase wheels tapped quietly across the wood floor, stopping just past the threshold. I could feel her trying to decide whether to call my name or walk in like she still lived here. She did neither. I heard her walk to the kitchen, then stop. I knew what she saw. The dining table still set for two, the second wine glass gathering dust, a single napkin untouched. Her seat, still waiting. But not for her. Not anymore. When she finally stepped into the living room, her eyes landed on me. Slouched, blank stare. A man who hadn't shaved or changed clothes in 2 days. She looked tired. Not just physically. Her face had the hollow, desperate look of someone who thought they were stepping into a conversation and found a courtroom instead. "I got your message," she said. "I know. I don't know what you want me to say. You already said everything. I just used your words." That one hit. I saw it. She shifted her weight, looked at the floor, then back at me. "You read my journal. I read what you left behind. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." That one made me laugh. Soft. Cold. "Mira, you booked a couple's massage." She flinched. Just slightly. I panicked. "No. You calculated." She sat down on the couch, but not like someone resting. Like someone surrendering. I was going to end it. With him. I swear. That's why I wrote the letter. That's why I didn't. "But you didn't send it," I interrupted. "You kept it. Like a backup plan." She didn't respond. And that was the most honest thing she'd done in months. "I need to explain," she said, quieter now. "No. You need to listen." She looked up, startled. I never used that tone with her. Not once in 10 years. "I know about the hotel," I said. "The meals. The wine. The spa charges. Room 214. I know it all. You weren't clever. You were lazy." She started to cry, and I hated how much I still felt that reflex, that pull to comfort her, to reach out and say something soft. But I didn't move. "You lied, Mira. For weeks. Months. And not just to me. To yourself. About who you are. About what you want. About whether you were brave enough to just say, 'I'm done.'" "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. "And that's the worst part," I said. "Because you did. Over and over. And you did it quietly. Smiling. Kissing me on the cheek while thinking about him. I didn't sleep with him." I nodded slowly. "You might think that matters. But it doesn't. You already left me in your mind. The rest was just logistics." She stood up, wiped her face, looked around the room, noticing the shifts, the new lamp in place of her candle tray, the bookshelf reorganized without her poetry books, the wall where her favorite painting used to hang. "You changed everything." "No," I said. "You did." Then I stood up, walked to the front door, and opened it. "Where am I supposed to go?" I looked her in the eye. "You'll figure it out. You're good at disappearing." She stared at me, stunned. Not because I kicked her out, but because she finally realized. She wasn't the one writing the ending anymore. I was. The door clicked shut behind her, but the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like static, like the kind of emptiness that buzzes in your ears after a concert, when the crowd is gone and you're just left standing there, trying to remember why it ever felt so loud. I didn't move. Not right away. I stood in the same spot for several minutes, staring at the space where she'd been, half expecting her to knock again. To cry, beg, scream, throw out some last-ditch memory that would break me open. But nothing. No footsteps retreating down the driveway. No car engine. No voice calling my name like it still meant something. Just gone. I closed the door, locked it, and walked past the suitcase she hadn't even unpacked. It was still sitting by the wall, like a temporary guest who overstayed their welcome. I didn't touch it. Not out of sentimentality. I just didn't want to feel the weight of something she packed with someone else in mind. Instead, I went upstairs. Stood in my bedroom. It smelled like her perfume. Still, that soft lavender scent that used to mean home, and now just smelled like someone else's lie. I pulled the sheets off the bed. Not just the pillowcases, all of it. Mattress cover, duvet, every soft layer she ever curled into while texting him under the blanket I bought. I stuffed everything into the laundry bin and pushed it down the stairs. I wanted new air, new silence. I left the windows open for hours, even as the wind blew through and knocked over a photo frame in the hallway. It was the picture from our second anniversary, Mira kissing my cheek while I tried not to laugh. We looked happy. More importantly, we believed we were happy. And maybe that was the worst kind of lie, the one we told together, without ever speaking it aloud. I didn't pick up the photo. Let it stay face down. Instead, I walked into her office. The room she once filled with her creative energy, as she liked to say. Paintings half finished, books half read, a vision board tacked to the wall with things she never pursued. I opened the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out the box. She probably thought I didn't know it was there. Inside were little scraps of someone she used to be. An old concert ticket, a postcard from a solo trip she took before we met, a scribbled napkin that said, "Don't wait for the world to get quiet, just scream louder." I didn't recognize the handwriting, and I didn't care. I dumped the box upside down, let it all fall onto the desk, and sat down in her chair. I spun once. Slowly. This was my life now. Not single, not married, just unclaimed. I didn't want sympathy, or revenge, or one of those new me Instagram posts with fake clarity and filtered optimism. I wanted honesty, even if it hurt, especially if it hurt. That night, I slept on the couch. The bedroom felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by conversations that never happened, by moments I replayed 1,000 times, now wondering if she had already mentally checked out during each one. Like when we danced in the kitchen to no music, when I bought her favorite cereal without asking, when I drove an hour out of my way to pick up a painting she saw once and never mentioned again. I didn't regret loving her. I just regretted thinking that love could outrun disinterest. The next morning, her name popped up on my phone again. A text. Just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I stared at it. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I muted the conversation. Not blocked. Not deleted. Just silenced. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I was finally ready to stop checking if she meant it. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for the air in the house to shift. The scent of her perfume finally faded from the walls. The couch stopped creasing the way it did when she curled into it sideways. I stopped waking up at 2 a.m., expecting the rustle of her slippers coming down the stairs for water she never drank. In those first few days, I moved slowly, quietly, like someone tiptoeing through a museum of their own grief. But then something happened. I woke up one morning and didn't check my phone. I just breathed, and it felt different. Not lighter, just mine. That night, I cooked pasta again. Same kind I made when I'd set the table for 2. Only this time, I ate it standing at the counter, barefoot, in silence. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't taste like loneliness. A few days later, I walked into Myra's office and stood in the middle of the room. Everything was still where she left it. I picked up her old vision board and looked at it again. One of the photos was of a cabin in the woods, tall windows, a fire pit, string lights across a deck. She'd always said she wanted to stay there just once, but we never did. Life got busy, or maybe we got comfortable with not trying. That night, I booked it, not out of spite, not to override a memory, just to remind myself I still could. I drove up alone 2 weekends later, no playlist, no expectations. Just me, a few books, a bag of groceries, and the strange calm that comes with knowing no one is waiting for you to fail. The cabin was exactly like the picture. Big windows, quiet trees, and a bed that didn't remember who I used to be. The second morning there, I sat on the deck with coffee and a sweater Mira had once bought for me, but said I never wore right. It was freezing, and I didn't care. A woman walked by on the trail below. Not young, not old, just human. She smiled. I nodded back. Nothing cinematic, nothing suggestive. But I remember thinking, if that was the start of something, I wouldn't mind. When I got home, the house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt like a blank page. I sold the wine glasses, donated her books, took the photo from our anniversary trip and tucked it away in a box, but didn't throw it out. I'm not angry anymore. I don't need to erase it. I just don't need it in front of me. Mira still texts sometimes. Mostly short things. Polite. Tentative. I haven't blocked her, but I haven't answered either. She once said I was the safest person she knew. And now? Now I'm safe for myself. Last week, I started painting the guest room. A fresh coat, warm tone. Something soft. Something new. I don't know what I'll do with it yet. Maybe a reading room. Maybe nothing. But for the first time, the idea of building something just for me doesn't feel selfish. It feels like healing. I'm not perfect. I still overthink everything. Still double knot my shoes. Still get quiet when I don't know how to say I'm hurting. But I've learned something Mira never gave herself the time to figure out. The most honest version of yourself is the one who stops performing. And this version of me, he's finally learning to breathe again.